Diyarbakır 6-5 Criminal Court has ruled the release of Peace and Democracy Party Şırnak's MP Selma Armak and Faisal Sarı Yıldız, an independent deputy for Van, Kemal Aktaş, who have been in custody as part of the so-called KGK, Kurdistan Communities Union trial. On Friday, Constitutional Court has ruled Peace and Democracy Party BDP, Selma Armak and Faisal Sarı Yıldız, as well as independent Kurdish deputy Kemal Aktaş, were subject to rights violations during their stay in the prison. The lawyers of the deputies appealed to the Diyarbakır 6-5 Criminal Court, demanding their release. In line with the decision of the Constitutional Court, the Diyarbakır Court decided to release the deputies on Saturday. On Thursday, the Diyarbakır 5th High Criminal Court released two BDP deputies, Gülser Yıldırım and Ibrahim Ayhan, who are being tried in the KGK case. After releasing of deputies, the BDP co-chair Gülten Kışanak reacted that lengthy detention is a fundamental problem of law in Turkey. The problem should be resolved through a legal amendments and in a serious way and radically. Deputies gave their struggle messages for democracy and freedom when they met people on streets of Kurdish cities, Ahmet and Van.
The officers who stopped the truck near the Reyhanlı district in the southern province of Hatay on the border with Syria were removed from their positions when they were still on the scene upon the prosecutor's demands. The truck was followed by a team of police from Hatay's Terror and Organized Crime Department on a tip-off that it was carrying weapons and ammunition to Syria. It was stopped twice by the police, first near a gendarmerie outpost on the Reyhanlı-Kırıkhan Road and again on the Muratpaşa Road. The police were prevented from searching the truck's cargo by an official statement from Governor Celalettin Lekesiz, who said the cargo was a state secret. Also, several chiefs and deputy chiefs from Hatay's Terror and Organized Crime Department were relocated after the incident. In the only official statement with regard to the truck, Interior Minister Efkan Ala said January 2nd the truck was carrying aid to Turkmens in Syria, but did not give details about its cargo. The alleged presence of ammunition on the truck, as well as the government's demands that the truck be allowed to pass, have raised suspicions that the state is pursuing secret links with illegal armed groups who are attacking to the Kurdish people also in Rojava, West Kurdistan and Syria.
We have prepared a dossier that introduces the three Kurdish politicians, Sakine Cansız, Fidan Doğan and Leyla Şaylemez. Shortly after, Sakine and several of comrades were arrested in 1979 in El Aziz. At the time of military coup on 12th of September 1980, she was taken to the infamous Diyarbakır prison. The prison was described as a hell of torture. The commander of the prison, Esat Oktay, was well known as the sadist, enjoying the cries of pains of his victims during heavy tortures. Sakine resisted his torture without showing the smallest sign of the pain she went through. Upright like a mountain, she stood in front of him, spitting in his face and saying, "Surrender is the attitude of traitors. Resistance against the tyranny is our life." The resistance of Sakine Cansız in the prison of Diyarbakır led to a new approach towards women in the Kurdish society. Sakine demonstrated the strength, self-conscious and courage of Kurdish women who dedicated themselves to the struggle for freedom and dignity. She went to the Masum Korkmaz Academy in the Bekaa Valley in Lebanon, where she joined ideological education programs led by Abdullah Öcalan. She also attended the first PKK conference of political prisoners. Afterwards, she took over important tasks in organizing the Kurdish movement in Palestine, Syria and the western part of Kurdistan. In the late 1990s, Sakine wrote her autobiography entitled "My Life Has Always Been in a Fight." Sakine Cansız was a leading figure of the Kurdish women's movement and contributed to its remarkable developments. She believed that women from Kurdistan have recreated themselves and their history by adopting the reality and the struggle of the PKK. She would evaluate even the smallest opportunity of the benefits of the struggle for freedom and democracy and a political solution of the Kurdish question. Also amongst the lefts and democratic parties in Europe, she gained many friendship relations for the support of the Kurdish people's concerns. She had a great impact on the advancements of the freedom struggle inside Kurdistan as well as in diaspora. She was struggling continuously to organize Kurdish people, especially women, and to prepare them for building up structures of democratic autonomy and a democratic, free, gender-liberated society. Sakine Cansız played also a leading role in many fields of the Kurdish women's movement in Europe. She was established many friendship relations with women movements and activities from different nations. Hereby she contributed to strengthen mutual solidarity and partnership in the struggle for freedom in many countries. Her final destination was Paris. Paris, a historical capital of revolutions, culture and art. Yet for the Kurds and for other people who are struggling for freedom and their right to self-determination, the city of Paris brings extrajudicial killings and pains to mind. On a cold and freeze day, on 9th of January 2013, a bad news shocks any human and the public. In Paris, that is known as the capital of love and beauty, the founding members of the PKK and the Kurdish women's leader Sakine Cansız and two of her comrades Fidan Doğan and Leyla Şaylemez were brutally killed at the Kurdish Information Center in the heart of Paris. Fidan Doğan was a representative of the Kurdish National Congress in France. She represented the political objectives of the Kurdish people and the Kurdish women's movement at any international meetings. Leyla Şaylemez was a young activist of the Kurdish youth and women's movement. Sakine, Fidan, Leyla, 3 generations of Kurdish women's liberation struggle. The triple execution was carried out with silent guns. The killers wanted to attack the free spirits of organized women within the Kurdish freedom movement by killing 3 revolutionary women with 10 shots in their heads. Nonetheless, the perpetrators did not reach their aims. Sakine has triumphed, as she did it several times in the past. Sakine, Fidan and Leyla defeated the death and their killers. Their voices and their spirits have moved millions of people. Everyone woke up and started by hearing the news in the night of 9th of January 2013. Once again, it was confirmed that the way to freedom and justice is still very long. Hearing the news of the assassination of Sakine and her 2 comrades, Leyla and Fidan, thousands of Kurds, their friends and progressive people immediately gathered in front of the Kurdistan Information Center, where the crime was committed. Only 3 days after, hundreds of thousands of people and political activists from different cultures and nationalists piled down on the streets of Paris, protesting against this political murder. 1 week after the mass killing, the pupils of Kurdistan opened their arms for the bodies of their 3 freedom-loving daughters, Sakine Cansız, Fidan Doğan and Leyla Şaylemez. Sakine returned to her hometown, Dersim. She always wanted to return to Dersim as a guerrilla, but she was dispossessed of realizing her dream. When she mentioned that, she wished that a part of her would be buried in Ahmet and another part in Dersim, or that her ashes could be spread over the whole land of Kurdistan, on the soils that have been watered by the blood of thousands of martyrs. As a Kurdish poet says, you should bow your body to every yard of Kurdistan to respect the martyrs, since there can be one in every yard. Millions of Kurdistani people welcomed her in Ahmet and followed her funeral until her final destination, where she rests in peace. In her mind, in her heart, she carried out the pains and the dreams of millions of people. Thus, she was striving and struggling to end the pains and realize the dreams of freedom and justice. Sakine Cansız, a revolutionary pioneer woman. May history be our witness.
Asayish forces reported that a group of unidentified armed men attacked to the Asayish. Reported that a taxi-type Kia Rio yesterday attacked Asayish Petrol in the city of Kamışlı near the bridge Kadir Bey and fired on Asayish Petrol. The group attacked Asayish Petrol Kamishlo section market without hurting anyone of Asayish, and during the chase, group of armed Asayish Petrol wounded by a member of the group were wounded and arrested, while the rest of the members of the group had fled after leaving the car in which they were driving. Sources close to the Kurdish National Council said the council will meet in January 10th to discuss joining the project of democratic self-management, noting that there is a possibility for the withdrawal of some of the parties of the Kurdish National Council if of the council refusal joins to the self-management.
9th of January is the anniversary of the Paris massacre. 3 Kurdish politicians, Sakine Cansız, Fidan Doğan and Leyla Şailemez, were brutally murdered in the French capital Paris on 9th of January 2013. Women and Kurdish people around the world are preparing themselves to protest this dark day. One of the biggest demonstrations will be held in Paris on 11th of January. For this purpose, the European Peace and Democracy Assembly has called for mass participation in the demonstration for Sakine Cansız, a co-founder of the Kurdistan Workers' Party, Fidan Doğan, the representative of the Kurdistan National Congress in Paris, and Leyla Şailemez, member of the Kurdish Youth Movement. The written statement issued by the Women's Freedom Committee of Abdem highlighted the fact that no progress has been made in solving the murders despite a year having passed. The statement drew attention to the fact that there was no continuing secrecy regarding the investigation into the murders of the 3 revolutionary Kurdish women. Adding that information in the case file is still being kept secret and the forces behind the massacre have not been revealed. They are trying to distract public attention by only arresting one person. But we will not allow this to happen. This case will not be like that of South African revolutionary women Dulcia September. Your silence is due to your participation. Protests held every Wednesdays demonstrates how important and sensitive subject this is for us. The statement stressed that the Paris massacre indicated the bankruptcy of European law and that it demonstrated that the democracy of those who gave fake democracy lessons was flimsy when it comes to political and economic interests. It was emphasized that the Abdem Women's Commission would continue its reactions until the forces behind the massacre were exposed, and called on all women, Democrats and those supporting humanity and freedom to take part in the demonstration in Paris on 11th of January. On the other hand, commemorations, acts and marches were held for 3 Kurdish women's politicians in Istanbul, Urfa, Izmir, Van, Mersin, Iğdır, Diyarbakır, Siirt and Mardin.
Turkey has been named the world's #1 jailer of journalists for the 2nd consecutive year, followed closely by Iran and China. The number of journalists behind bars in Turkey is 40, down from the 61 recorded in October 2012 and less than the 49 on December 1st, 2012, according to the New York-based Committee to Protect Journalists. An international campaign will be launched to collect signatures for Kurdish journalists imprisoned in Turkey for the past 2 years. The president of the European Federation of Journalists, Mogens Blecher-Burgard, has given his support to the campaign. In a text released to announce the start of the campaign, the trial against the journalists is called the biggest journalist trial in history. The journalists were arrested on 20th of December 2011 in a major police operation against Kurdish media organizations, including Azadiya Velat, Özgür Gündem, DİHA, ANF, Fırat Dağıtım and Democratic Modernity. They were accused of being connected to the KCK Press Committee as a part of the KCK cases that have targeted all levels of Kurdish political and civil society. On 10th of September 2012, the trial began for 46 journalists, indicted journalists, 36 of whom were in prison at the time. Today, 19 Kurdish journalists remain in prison. Sedat Yılmaz, a founding member of the Turkish Journalists Union and the editor of Özgür Gündem, explained the reasons for the campaign, saying, "We have started a campaign so that we do not allow our friends who are paying the price of Turkey's anti-democratic structure and backward, racist sense of freedom of expression to be forgotten. The case against our friends now on trial continues. The secret of the dead end and the fight that Turkey finds itself in today is hidden in the trial. Turkey is experiencing this crisis as a result of the state that a remedy to the Kurdish issue has taken. Yilmaz stressed that the campaign was designed to raise public support and awareness for the journalists and their struggle.
Since the revolution of 19th of July, People's Defense Unities has increased its forces to 10,000 within a short period. In April, Women's Defense Unit YPG has been set up. Meanwhile, the gangs having been defeated by YPG kidnapped and massacred civil people in many centers. YPG's resistance in Rojava. 2013 started with attacks of gangs. The first attacks against Rojava after the revolution of 19th of July 2012 have started towards the end of 2012. The gangs related to Syria Free Army and Al-Qaeda organized the first attack to Serikanye on 15th of November 2012. The attacks did not gain successes facing the resistance of YPG, the defense force of Rojava. YPG Women's Defense Units had organized its first conference between 2nd and 4th of April. Revolution, having started in 2012, has eventually spread. The defense forces resisted not only against the gangs but also against the regime forces. Some regions were retrieved from the gangs and the regime forces. In the midst of February, 13 civil Kurds were killed by the regime forces in the region of Tel Eran nearby Halep. On 19th of February, Kurdish people having mobilized on the initiative of YPG retrieved Shlecha from the Bas regime forces. In May, gangs group tried to occupy Tel Temer but repulsed by YPG. 35 members of the gangs groups were killed. On 31st of May, Maryam Mohammed, nicknamed Slava, was killed in the gangs' attacks to Basile village of Sharawa, a town of Afrin. Slava was the first woman martyr of Rojava's People's Defense Forces and was buried with a ceremony attended by thousands. On 30th of July, Isa Hasso, a member of Diplomacy Commission of Kurdish Supreme Council and a member of People's Assembly, lost his life in a bomb attack put up by the gangs. Isa Hasso spent his 29 years in the Kurdish Liberation Movement and was a bid farewell with a big ceremony in Kamishlo. In September, the gangs associated to Al-Qaeda conducted concurrent attacks in Rojava, using heavy armor and tanks and having reinforcements from other regions. YPG resisted successfully against those attacks and killed tens of gangs members while losing 8 of its force. On 9th of October, Shervan Muslim, the son of the co-president of the PYD, Salem Muslim, lost his life in a battle between YPG and the gangs in the region of Grespi. Thousands bid farewell to Shervan Muslim in Kobane. AKP governors, having no results from all kinds of its supporter gangs, produced new policies, started building walls in the border of the Nusaybin Kamishlo, Ceylanpınar Serikanye and Afrin Kilis, naming the walls walls of shame. The Kurdish people on both sides of the border stood up against the constructions. On 24th of October, YPG commandership initiated a revolutionary operations in Tel Kocher, calling it the revenge of Terbesiye and Tel Elo martyrs. In the first phase of the operation, YPG achieved to retrieve 7 centers of the gangs groups. During the month of December, harsh battles took place between the regime forces and the armed groups in Halep and its surroundings. The both sides lost many of their members in addition to tens of civil people. The regime forces faced YPG retouring activities when targeted the Kurdish neighborhoods. The support of the Turkish state to gangs. The Turkish state conducted the war against the Kurdish through the gangs. Since the beginning of the year, the Turkish state has supported the gangs associated with Al-Qaeda that attacks to and massacre civil people in Rojava and Syria. This support has been documented many times by the Kurdish and international press. Many members of these gangs coming from Europe passed Rojava and Syria over Turkey and joined the massacres. Rojava has been blockaded through the whole year of 2013. Turkey has laid an embargo by closing the borders while South Kurdistan closed the border gates of Sumelka. Despite all those reactions, Rojava has accomplished to build its own system and economy, building democratic autonomy, people-organized self-management. People of Rojava proceeded building their autonomous governance despite all the attacks. Institutionalization in all life fields has been achieved. Steps have been taken to organize educations in Kurdish, and many education centers have been opened and teachers are raised due to this purpose. Second Geneva Conference. The conference was on the agenda of Kurds. The Second Geneva Conference, which was postponed many times, occupied in a main place on the agenda of Rojava Kurds in the last month of 2013. Rojava Kurds publicly declared their demands to participate with an independent deputation to the conference, which is now decided to take place on 22nd of January 2014. Rojava Revolution, democratic modernity against capitalist modernity. Today, Rojava is the 0 point of the world, and Rojava Revolution will either create a domino effect to change the whole Middle East, maybe the whole world, and to build a democratic modernity against capitalist modernity based on self-management of people, or will continue to be dominated by the ruling class and elites. Rojava is the 0 point of the world not only because Rojava Revolution implies a structural change in economy, but also proposes a holistic change of space, of identities and of ecology. Because of this, for the whole world, long live Rojava Revolution.